So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about how to go about commissioning a fursuit. And just a bit of a disclaimer, this video is going to already assume that you have the money saved up that you need to get a fursuit, and this is also going to assume that you have a basic understanding of how budgeting works. You don't need to be a budgeting guru per se, but you should at least have an understanding of why trying to get a $5,000 fursuit with $6,000 in your bank account is probably not the best idea. The first thing that you need in order to commission a fursuit is you need a reference sheet. Now, a reference sheet is a term that comes from both the animation and the art industry. It is essentially a sheet of your character that gives artists a, reference of what your character looks like so they can translate them into whatever medium they need to in order to be effective. Now, this is my reference sheet, or at least one of them. It was done by a wonderful artist on Instagram named Fua. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. I will leave her link in the description. If you want a artist to commission that is also Christian, that's really, really good at this stuff, I would highly, highly recommend her. She has a very fast turnaround time. She is very kind. She does a lot of different things. She can do a reference sheet of an already existing character like this, or she can even design a completely new character. For example, this is Whistler, so this is my character. This is one that already existed. And this is Alora. This is a character that did not exist before. She was completely designed from the ground up by her, and of course by input and stuff. A reference sheet is also going to need a few things in order to be effective. Number one, it needs a color scheme. Make sure that the colors of your character are very easily visible. That gives fursuit makers, it makes their job a lot easier in order to find fur. Make sure it has at least two views, a front and a back view. Sometimes you may want a side view. Not every fursuit maker will require a side view, but if you want it there, it's there. Those are the very big things. These things at the center right here are just character things, so they're not super necessary for making a fursuit. But generally speaking, as long as you have these two views, a color palette, and also make sure that your reference sheet is unshaded, meaning that there's no gradients or lighting or anything like that. It's just flat colors, because again, it makes it a lot easier on the fursuit makers to be able to find fur for your fursuit. Once you have a reference sheet, the next step is what's called making a short list of fursuit makers. Now, this is the step where you want to go in and you want to start researching and looking into a lot of different fursuit makers. And there are a few things that you want to look out for. Most fursuit makers will usually have some sort of website that you can go to and look at all their stuff. And so there's a few things that you want to look at when you're considering a maker. The first is you want to go to their terms of service. You want to check their terms of service and see how getting a commission from them would work, see what sort of clauses, basically look at the fine print and see what they're offering and stuff. And also consider the fact that there are some makers that can deny your commission based on things, and there are also some fursuit makers that can reject your commission for various reasons, or they can just blacklist you for various reasons. So be sure that you look into their terms of service, make sure what they're okay with, what they're not okay with, and make sure you're okay with that. The second thing to look at is their gallery. Most fursuit makers will have a gallery of all of their previous works. Take a look at all of their works and see what it looks like. See if their style, what it looks like, complements what you're going for your fursuit. The third thing to look at is their pricing. Now, pricing is very important, not just because you want to see, how much it will cost, but also to see how different fursuit makers define things. Some fursuit makers will define some terms differently. Mostly in the fandom, this comes with the term partial. Now, when some people say a partial fursuit, they mean a head, paws, and a tail. Some other people will include arm sleeves and feet paws as part of that, while other fursuit makers will include those as add-ons for an extra price. So make sure you know how they define these terms, and make sure you know which one of these you want. Generally speaking, a partial fursuit, it's a lot easier to suit up in, it's a lot easier to perform in, you have a lot more room with, what clothes you wear and stuff, but a full suit is a little bit more immersive, it's a little bit more, expressive and stuff, but it's also a lot more work, it's a lot more expensive, you have to make a duct tape dummy for that, and generally speaking, they are also more work to maintain because that's another whole thing that you have to maintain. Also keep in mind that if you do want to get a full suit, A good 90% of fursuit makers will require you to make a duct tape dummy. There are plenty of tutorials out there on YouTube if you want to know how to make a duct tape dummy. But like I said, generally speaking, most fursuit makers will require you to do that. I have seen a couple of makers that don't require it, but they are very few and far between. Once you've done your research into it, like I said, you're going to want to make a short list of makers. So make a list of probably about 2 to 3 different fursuit makers that you would be considering for sure. And then after that, the next step is getting quotes slash commissioning them. Now, lots of different fursuit makers will have different ways of how this works. Some fursuit makers will require you to get what's called a quote first, which basically means you tell them what you want, you show them your character, what you would want out of a fursuit, and then they will give you a price as to, how much they charge. They'll say, okay, if you're going to commission me, this is how much I would charge you, essentially. Some makers will require you to do that and then go and apply for a commission. Some fursuit makers may just say you can just apply for a commission like right here and I'll just give you a price. Most of the time, they're not going to work on a first come, first served basis. They typically work with the designs that most stand out to them and the ones that they want to use. That's another thing. Back on the whole reference sheet thing, if you're making your character for the first time, make sure that your character is fursuit friendly. I will leave a link in the description. There's a wonderful video by Sky High Studios that talks about how to make your fursona fursuit friendly, which basically means so it's not a nightmare for your fursuit maker to recreate in real life. Anyway, so now that you've gotten that far, you've gotten either a quote or you have applied for a commission, then after that, it's just a waiting process. Before you get your quote and your commission, also make sure that you know how you're going to pay it off. A lot of different fursuit makers will take payment plans, but typically speaking, fursuit makers prefer it if you can pay upfront. And then after that, it's pretty much just a waiting process to see if you are approved or not. Now, some fursuit makers are smaller than others. Some fursuit makers may just say, okay, well, hey, I want to take your commission because I have no other project that I'm doing right now. Other makers that are more popular might have to pick and choose. They might get, say, between like 40 to 50 applicants of all people that want suits, and they have to choose like 2 or 3 of them. Not even because like they hate everyone, but just because they are their own person and they can only do so much at one time. You also have to consider that many fursuit makers do not do this as their full-time work. So they only have so much time on their hands, they only have so much energy on their hands, and they only have so much hands on their hands. After all of that, pretty much it's just waiting to see if you got approved or not, or if they'll take your commission or not. When, they take your commission, make sure you have your payment ready. Typically speaking, fursuit makers will ask for some sort of deposit, some sort of security deposit at first, and this basically guarantees your spot in their queue. Typically, this is also non-refundable, so basically, when you get to this step, make sure that you are fully ready to commit. And typically speaking, also, fursuit makers won't work on your commission until it's paid off, or at the very least, they will not ship out your commission until it is fully paid off. When you're right in the middle of the fursuit creation process, also just remember the fact that fursuits take a long time to make, and once again, most fursuit makers do not do this as their full-time job. And so don't go pestering them every single day asking for updates and stuff, because generally speaking, they're probably not going to have updates for you every single day, considering the fact that, again, most fursuit makers do not do this as their full-time work. Let them come to you. I mean, some fursuit makers will also clearly state, these are the days of the week that I work and stuff, and so that'll make it easier. But again, generally speaking, don't bug them every single day. Just let things happen. Fursuit makers want you to be happy. They want you, the customer, to be happy. They want to represent your persona as best as they can. And so if you have something that you want to say to them, speak up about it. Make sure you tell them, and don't be afraid of like hurting their feelings or whatever, because it's like, again, they want to make your persona the best that they can. And so speak up about these things earlier so that they know this. And because, like the later you speak up about it, the harder it is to fix. Once your whole fursuit is done crafting, like they'll probably send you pictures, send you videos, things like that. And they'll also send, like work in progress shots throughout all of it and stuff. After all of that, then you get your fursuit shipped out to you. And generally speaking, the farther away you are, the more you're going to have to pay for shipping stuff. Make sure you consider those shipping charges when you're choosing your maker and stuff. And again, makers will specify, like how they'll ship it, when they'll ship it, and stuff. Some fursuit makers may also offer, like little air tags in your suit so that you can keep track of them. Generally speaking, again, read all of this when you're choosing your maker. I cannot stress enough. Read your fursuit maker's terms of service, read their entire site before you even think about commissioning them, because they will thank you for it and you will thank yourself for it. Anyways, then once you've gotten your fursuit shipped out to you, basically it's just waiting for it to get to you, and then voila, you've gotten your fursuit and you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. That's pretty much it. Some fursuit makers will define partial differently, so typically speaking, you're going to want to know whether you want a partial or a full suit. I would personally highly recommend that you start with at the very least a partial. Don't just start with a head. Start with at least something that can get you to, like actually like become your character and stuff. And you have to consider that a fursuit is an investment, right? And so invest into something, that can last. And so that's why I say again, at least start with a partial, or at the very least a mini partial. Most people define a mini partial as a head, paws, and a tail. That's a pretty good start. Or if you want to go all in and just start with a full suit, that's more than fine too. The great thing about having a full suit is that you don't have to wear it all the time. You can just wear the head, paws, and tail if you really wanted to. And so it's very useful in that regard. And also, if you're going to get a full suit, again, you're probably going to need a duct tape dummy. Invite your friends over and, like, have some pizza, watch a movie, go out somewhere. Make it fun. I mean, that's what we did at Anthrocon, me and my friends. We kind of just hung out for about 3 hours, and we were just talking and laughing and having fun while we were making all of these duct tape dummies, and it was great. So those are my general tips and advice for going about commissioning a fursuit. If you have any other questions for me, make sure to let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I love you and God bless. Thank you so much and stay awesome. Bye.